getting us in trouble, but for the purpose of protecting and blessing our lives and making it possible for us to just reveal your glory. And I pray that you bless those for whom prayer has been mentioned tonight. I ask you, Lord, to give us wisdom to live life in the center of your will. And that just solves so many problems. Now, I pray for those families that are struggling physically. I pray for Sister Charlotte tonight. Pray for these requests that have been mentioned. I'm asking you, Lord, to be what they need health-wise and emotionally and in every way. And I ask you to bless our study in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Yes, ma'am. Smith. Adams. Oh, Karen. Okay. All right. Now we can say it. What time?
They know the party is happening. They know that you're all invited. They only think that church and family people are going to be there, but several of the builders from across the United States and Karen and David.
Oh, Karen and David are coming?
Yes.
Are they? Oh, cool. I hadn't seen them since they left Florida. Wow. All right.
They got their tickets bought and they're coming.
Oh, good. I can't wait to give Dave a hard time. No.
Their water damage over the school department, so there's a group trying to go over there March 16th and try to put sheetrock back on, a few feet to cut out, and hang some cabinets.
If you have those skills and you want to go, that's on Saturday, by the way. All right. Benedict Spinoza said one time, "A vain man may become proud and imagine himself pleasing to all when in reality he is a universal nuisance." This describes Job's friends from Job's point of view. This also describes Job from Job's friends' point of view. Everybody was just sort of a universal nuisance to each other so far, and we've walked through this book so far pretty deep, and I think you could agree that they've both been a nuisance, you know. And in chapter 31, what we finished up last week, Job rests his case. All right, the case is now in the hands of the judge. And one thing that you've got to say about Job, he never buckled under the pressure. They accused him of everything under the sun, and he never said, "You're right, that's what I did." He never did that. And they never let up. They never quit charging him. He never agreed. And so he has maintained his innocence the whole time. Now, what he did do, he questioned God's fair judgment. He did do that. And we've seen some pretty heavy charges that Job laid against the Lord. And so not only did he speak about corruption in high places, he spoke about corruption in the most high place. And because of that, this young man that we're about to meet tonight, it was just about more than he can handle. But because of Oriental etiquette, this kid, this young man, didn't say anything, because in the Orient, young men do not speak in the presence of old men, at least at this period in history. And you certainly never interrupted. You never, ever did that. And so far, he's been mannerly, down at the landfill trying to behave himself. And so he has, here's Job. Now, he has challenged God to speak up, tell me what I did wrong, either vindicate me or sentence me. Let's get it over with. He was tired of all of the proceedings. And, man has a sense of justice. Animals don't have this, but man wants things right, don't we? If somebody does something wrong, you want to pay for it, don't you? Somebody abuses a child. What do you want to happen to that person? I want to pay for that, we just have this sense of, a few weeks ago, just to let you know what level this goes to, the Patriots were playing the Saints. It was an NFC playoff, wasn't it? It was an NFC playoff game. Joe was the Rams. Yeah, it was the Rams and the Saints. And there was a very clear pass interference that did not get called. I mean, and the ref was right there, wasn't he? He was standing right there. And the guy just crushes the receiver, and then the ball sails over his head, and that prevented them from getting a first down. So probably, and people just went nuts. I mean, this was on social media all over the country, and the refs got in trouble, and da-da-da. You know, they shouldn't have been there. It should have been the Saints. And that's probably true, as a matter of fact. Yeah, and it did. It wound up costing them the game. And so people were very mad about that. So we have this sense of justice that can be injured by, well, that wasn't necessarily a trite thing, but as far as eternal values, you know, are concerned, it was. But this matter of fairness, you remember what the serpent did to Eve in the Garden of Eden? God hadn't been fair. What? He's not been fair with you. You can know more. What? Yeah. You can be closer to him. What? Yeah, you can be closer to him. And so he convinced her that God wasn't fair, and that led to where we are tonight. And so Job's three buddies have finally given up. Now, they have poured this verbal vomit on this poor creature. They have, oh my word, they have just whanged and beat on him, and it's been pretty bad. And they were upset because he was talking about God in such daring tones. You just don't talk about God like that. But they couldn't get him to change his mind. They couldn't get him to break and confess. And so finally they just shut up. And the silence was kind of deafening, as a matter of fact. There were people standing around listening to all of this stuff. And so they were wrong about Job. We've come to that conclusion, right? Job was not guilty of these things. They were wrong about God also. So they've been wrong all the way around. And they'd lost their case. They were Morgan and Morgan, and they got blown out of the courtroom. That really made this young man mad that we're going to meet tonight. And what he's going to do is give us a little different perspective. Matter of fact, I like his perspective to a degree. And they'd lost their case because God had not spoken, but he did. And what Elihu is going to propose is that God has been speaking the whole time, you just hadn't heard him. God speaks in different ways. And it's not always, hey, Job, can we talk? It's not always like that. There are some other ways, other voices that God uses. And so just silence falls on this landfill crowd. Job's through. His three buddies have given up. Well, not everybody was silent, okay? There's this young man by the name of Elihu. He's going to speak up. As a matter of fact, when the lid finally blows, all the air doesn't get out of this young man for the next 6 chapters. So he's going to talk for 6 chapters. And we're going to try to get through 2 of them at least tonight. Now here's a breakdown of his speech. Let me give you, it's in 4 movements, all right, and then we'll jump into chapter 32. God is speaking through me, and in essence, he's going to tell Job, I'm what you've been waiting for. Now, he's a young guy, he's a young theologian, and so what are young preachers often? Yeah, a little bit on the cocky side, and you're gonna smell, what is that? That's arrogance. That's what that is. You're gonna smell a little arrogance with this guy in chapter 32, verse 8 specifically, and then he's gonna say God is gracious, and God is very gracious, and that's gonna be in chapter 33. Chapter 34 and 35, God is just. He hasn't done you wrong, and then God is great. That's in chapters 36 and 37, and so that's going to be the block of text that we're going to study for the next little bit. Now, Elihu is going to repeat some of the things that his 3 buddies have said. He will repeat some of that stuff. However, his purpose is going to be a little different. And he wasn't going to try to prove that Job was a sinner. He's left that alone because Job hasn't agreed, and apparently Elihu has also been convinced, at least of that part. He was going to try to prove that Job was wrong about God. Not that he was a sinner, but that he was wrong about God. And his position is a little unique. And what he's going to say is that that God sends suffering not necessarily because we've sinned, like his three friends have accused him, but he sends suffering to prevent us from sinning. It's kind of a dead end. Don't go there. And if you're headed there, the Lord will put a roadblock in your way. And so, in other words, suffering is not punitive, like the three guys said it is. It's preventative. And as a matter of fact, suffering is to make us better people. We're going to find about that in chapter 36. Is that true? Has suffering ever purified you and cleansed you and straightened you up? And, you went through some hard times, you came out better on the other side of it? I think that's probably a pretty common thing. Paul would have agreed with this first premise, as a matter of fact. If you'll read 2 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 7 through 10, Paul talks about this issue. Suffering is not necessarily a bad thing. It's a purifier. You put gold in the fire to do what? Purify it, boil out the impurities. And so this is the line of thinking that Elihu is going to take. And then the writer of Hebrews, which is probably Paul as well, would have agreed with this second, that it's a preventative. It's not only that will it purify you, it's a preventative. And people have memories, I remember the last time I did that, I got hurt, so I'm not going to do that again. And so that's kind of what the suffering was supposed to do, is prevent people from doing ignorant things again. And so we're going to take a look at the first two of Elihu's affirmations in this situation in chapter 32. Look at verse number 1. Now, let me just say this. Chapter 32 is sort of it's a windy preamble to chapter 33, all right? So this is just sort of an introduction. He's just going to blow some hot air, and he's going to build himself up, and then he's going to get into what he wants to say in chapter 33. So right now, this is just some introduction, verse number 1. So these three men ceased to answer Job. They shut up. Because he was righteous in his own eyes. Then was kindled the wrath of Elihu of Barachel the Buzite. Buz was the nephew of Abraham. And so this young man is kin to some pretty significant figures. And he was of the kindred of Ram against Job. So he was mad, number one, at Job. Was his wrath kindled because he justified himself rather than God. So why was he mad at Job? Because Job kept saying, I ain't done anything wrong. It ain't me, God. God's got the problem. I don't know what his problem is. He hasn't said anything to me about it. He's not sent me any kind of subpoena, no charges. And so this made him mad. Number 3. Also against his 3 friends was his wrath kindled. So he's mad at everybody. Because they had found no answer and yet had condemned Job. In other words, they hadn't shut Job up. They were not good debaters because Job had not been convinced that he was a sinner. And so they're mad at Job, or he's mad at Job because Job just seemed to be this self-righteous, I haven't done anything wrong, it's all God's fault. And he's also mad at his 3 buddies because they couldn't shut him up. They weren't skilled enough to find arguments to say, well, okay, Job, I guess I'm wrong. They couldn't do that. All right, verse 4. Now, Elihu had waited till Job had spoken because they were elder than he. When Elihu saw there was no answer in the mouth of these 3 men, then his wrath was kindled. And Elihu, the son of Barachel, the Buzite, answered and said, I'm young, and ye are very old. Wherefore I was afraid and durst not show you mine opinion. I like that. I'm not going to agree with everything the man says, but I like the fact that he kept his mouth shut while elders spoke. You like that? The young man had been raised right, he didn't jump in the middle of something. And so verse number 7. Now, he does get a little sarcastic. I said to myself, he was thinking, days should speak, and multitude of years should teach wisdom. There's a spirit in man, and the inspiration of the Almighty giveth them understanding. In essence, I'm bringing something new to the table. And you know what I'm bringing to the table? Some godly counsel. These guys have just been yakety, 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 yak. Now you're about to hear some godly counsel. Okay, you're going to hear the truth now. Great men are not always wise. Neither do the aged understand judgment. Can you see him throwing a little glance over these three guys, you know? And that's true. Age doesn't necessarily bring wisdom. Somebody said one time that gray hair is not necessarily a sign of age or wisdom. It can be a sign of age, but it's not necessarily a sign of wisdom, and that's true. Therefore I said, hearken to me, and I'll show mine opinion. Behold, I waited for your words. I gave ear to your reasons, whilst ye searched out what to say. So they were digging and plundering around in the toolbox of vocabulary and their traditions and their historical knowledge, and they're trying to find something that fits the situation. He just sat and watched it for 27 chapters. He hadn't said anything. Yea, I attended unto you, and behold, there was none of you that convinced Job. None of you guys shut him up. None of you did. Your arguments were so weak that it didn't shut the door on his ignorance. Aren't you glad I'm here? The closer is here. All right? You didn't convince Job or answered his words, lest ye should say, we have found out wisdom. God thrusteth him down, not man. Now, that's kind of a tough sentence that just simply means he's saying that the three guys, this is their point of view. We've done all we can. There's just nothing else we could have said. See, we're not going to throw him down. This is God's job. So basically, they gave up. That's what he's saying. Y'all just gave up, you know. You're saying, well, it's God's job to throw him down, not man's job. Now, he hath not directed his words against me, neither will I answer him with your speeches. I'm not going to just vomit up what you've said, because apparently that has not been very effective. He's still maintaining his innocence, so he's going to take it in another direction. They were amazed. They answered no more. They left off speaking. Now, the word amazed there doesn't mean, oh, whoa, they got mad. Now here's some older guys getting chided by a younger guy. What would that happen? What do you think that would do to most older guys? You'd be amazed too, you know. And in this word, they got a little aggravated at him. When I had waited, for they spake not but stood still and answered no more, I said. So he sensed a lull in the action. Job is through. These three guys are like, I don't have anything else to say, man. I don't know. I'm out of arguments. And so when he saw this little wrinkle in time, that's when he jumps in. And verse 17. I said, I will answer also my part, and I will also show my opinion. Y'all can't get the job done, so get out of the way. Y'all are through. I'll take it from here, for I am full of matter. The Spirit within me constraineth me. Now you're going to hear the truth, guys. Y'all just sit and listen. Just learn. And behold, my belly is as wine which hath no vent. It is ready to burst like new bottles. Well, bottles in these days weren't glass. They were like the stomach of an animal. You know, they would clean the stomach out and put wine in it, and that wine skin, that's called a wine skin, and it would cure. And it would get so big, and then that would be as big as it ever get. So if you put new wine, put grape juice in this, and that grape juice fermented, and it would swell. Well, when it got to the full extent of this wine skin, it just blow up. And so that's what he's saying. He said, I'm about to bust. I am like a wineskin. It's got new wine. I'm about to blow up. I got to say something. By the way, you ever been there? Have you ever been Nancy Pelosi at the State of the Union address and you just, And it's just not time yet. You know, you hadn't been asked, or there's just not this seam of time. It's not the appropriate time. Well, he finally saw the jugular vein, and buddy, he's going to jump on it. I will speak that I may be refreshed. I got to get rid of this, you know. I will open my lips and answer. Let me not, I pray you, accept any man's person, neither let me give flattering titles unto man. For I know not to give flattering titles. In so doing, my Maker would soon take me away. In other words, you guys are old, and y'all are experienced, and y'all are aged, and yada, 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 but I don't care. I don't care who you are. I'm not going to, not just because you're old doesn't mean you're wise. Just because you are experienced doesn't mean you know what you're doing. And so he's just warning them what's to come. Now, verse 33. And so what he's saying is God's speaking through me. And apparently he's not spoken through these three guys yet because they didn't get the job done. It's not effective. And what God does is effective. Now, verse 1, chapter 33. Wherefore Job, now he's talking directly to Job, I pray thee, hear my speeches, and hearken to all my words. Behold, now I have opened my mouth, my tongue hath spoken in my mouth. My words shall be of the uprightness of my heart, and my lips shall utter knowledge clearly. So, you're going to understand every word. Not like these guys. I've been kind of confused what's going on with these guys, but I'm going to lay it on the line, and you're going to walk away saying, "Oh wow, now I understand." The Spirit of God hath made me, and the breath of the Almighty hath given me life. And that's a claim that finally somebody's in this situation that's representing God, and the Spirit of God, and wisdom, and brilliance, and all this kind of stuff. If thou canst answer me, set thy words in order before me. Stand up. If what I'm fixing to tell you is not the truth, and if you want to enter into a debate here, please feel free. You know, stand up. Behold, I love this next phrase. Behold, I am according to thy wish in God's stead. Oh, exactly. You remember Job wanted somebody of great wisdom to represent him, right? He wanted a lawyer. He wanted a mediary. He wanted some great hero to come. Well, here I'm here. Here I am. So I am, aren't you glad I'm here? I also am formed out of the clay. Behold, my terror shall not make thee afraid, neither shall my hand be heavy. Be calm, big fella. I'm not going to beat you up. I'm not here to hurt you. My wisdom is going to be soft. It's going to be gentle. Spirit of God rests in me, by the way, you know, just so you know that this is going to be so spiritual. This is going to be so like God. Surely thou hast spoken in mine hearing, and I've heard the voice of your words. I heard, and apparently this young man was listening very carefully to all sides of this argument, because he's going to quote Job. And this is what you said, and it's pretty much going to be what he said. But he's very indignant. He's mad at everybody, as a matter of fact. And so he says, now here's what you've said, Job, verse 9, I'm sorry. I am clean without transgression. All right, now, first of all, that Job never said. You're claiming to be perfect. Job never claimed without transgression. All right, he's not claimed that. I'm innocent. Now, he did claim that. So you be careful when you're quoting people. It's easy to throw wood on the fire to make people look worse than they are or better than they are. Watch the evening news. They do this all the time. He said, I've heard the voice of thy words. I'm clean without transgression. I'm innocent. Neither is there iniquity in me. Behold, he findeth occasion against me. This is what Job is saying now. He's talking about God. He counteth me for his enemy. He putteth my feet in stocks. He marketh all my paths. No, he's just staring at me like somebody watching over your shoulder while you're working? Said God is he's just walking around waiting for me to do something wrong. Behold, in this thou art not just. Now he's through quoting him. Now he's giving some application. He said, in what you've just said, that's not true. You've made a mistake right there. I will answer thee that God is greater than man. I think everybody in here would agree with that. Man is an inferior species, an inferior form of life. God's perfect. God is holy. Man is not. Why dost thou strive against him? For he giveth not account of any of his matters. Why are you demanding that God explain what's happened to you? Does God owe you an explanation? That's I think, a legitimate question. We've all had stuff in life. And probably everybody here has, either out loud or in your own heart, has asked this question. I don't understand why. Why? I mean, this was a young person and they died. This was a faithful servant. There was a young man years ago. His name was Dale Fazenfeld. And Dale Fazenfeld was the lead speaker, I guess, in a group called Life Action. If y'all have ever heard of Life Action. Tremendous revival team that came to Lock Haven many, many, many years ago. Dale Fazenfeld was probably one of the most godly men, authentically godly men that I have ever met in my life. And Dale was, I think, 33, died of brain cancer. And I was like, I'd been in the ministry for a long time, and I'm like, wow, why take him off the playing field? Why not leave him on the mound? Let him pitch, but that's not what God wanted to do. And so I know we've all asked that question, just why? But does God owe you an answer to your question, by the way, or me? He doesn't owe us anything. What does he want from us? Just trust me, all right? Trust me. I know where we're going. I know what I'm doing. Trust me. And so just...
There's a picture. I was just showing somebody today. Jesus is talking to a little girl, and she's holding her little teddy bear. But God's got a really big one behind his back, or Jesus does. And he's holding his hand out to the little girl to give him her teddy bear. And he said, just trust me. She says, but Jesus, I love it so much.
Good.
So much better than what we can imagine.
Right. Good illustration.
George says God doesn't give us faith, or Brother Chris, God doesn't give us faith to find the answers, but to deal with the questions.
Well, we're adults in here, and we've all had something that just absolutely confused us, and I'm aware of that. So why do you strive against him? He doesn't give account of any of his matters. For God speaketh once, and he'll speak. And sometimes he'll speak twice, and we still don't get it. It's like, you ever tell your kid to do something once, and they didn't get it, or didn't want to, and you speak to them again, and they still didn't get it? And I wonder how many times that God has spoken to us more than once, and we still didn't. We just keep right on going doing what we want to do. In a dream. Now here's a way that God speaks. And Job has maintained, I've heard nothing. Nothing. God has said nothing. I have received no kind of information. And so Elihu is he's going to point that God does speak, and often he speaks through the voice of your suffering. Sometimes that is God's voice. And we're like, I can't hear a thing. And God is speaking the whole time. Sometimes he will speak through your conscience. You ever just had a desire to do something, just an urge to talk to somebody, or not to do, you know what I'm saying? The Lord ever just used the onboard equipment that he designed into us to use to talk to you. Sometimes he'll do that. And sometimes, Elihu says, God will speak to you in your dreams. Now, I don't think this is the way God leads 100% of the time. I think this is probably one of the lesser things that God does, but I think he does do this. You ever dreamed the answer to a problem that you were dealing with? Buddy, I have. A lot of spice will give you a lot of answers on it. There have been many, many times when y'all have heard messages that I preached in this pulpit that the beginning of it was while I was dead asleep. Got an idea. I have preached I don't know how many times in my dreams. And so, and there have been some of them that I said, oh, I like that. Get up and write that out. And so God does use that. Now, I don't think that's just the daily way, that God leads, but there are times. Well, let's just read what he says. In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falleth upon men, in slumberings upon the bed, then he openeth the ears of men. See, you're not awake to argue. You're quiet. You're unconscious. You're not going to fight. And so he sealeth their instruction. In other words, when you're asleep and you're not arguing and throwing your own 2 cents worth, he will give you the instructions. And I think that's pretty smart, really, to wait until we're out. That he may withdraw man from his purpose and hide pride from men. Now, why does God deal with us while we're sleeping? Keep you from doing something dumb. To hide you from pride. To get to your conscious, which is subconscious at this moment, and say, don't do that. Don't go there. Do this. This is what you need to do. I'm curious. Has anybody ever been given direction for your life, maybe even the next day, in a dream one night? You dreamed the answer to something. You've done that.
When I worked at Grimsley Oil, when I first started, their books were 3 months behind. And
Oh.
It was a conglomerate of books that had to come together into one count. And I could not find a mistake. I looked everywhere I could think of. And so that night I asked the Lord, I need you to show me where to look tomorrow because I can't think of anywhere else to look. And I dreamed it.
And you dreamed it.
I went back to work the next day and that was it.
Man, a dream about bookkeeping, that ain't a dream. That's a nightmare right there. That's a pure nightmare. Great day. All right. Anybody else have an example of that? It's happened to you? Okay. Multiple times, apparently. Yeah. And right, yes, sir. Yes, sir. And so he in the night hours when we're the most vulnerable, by the way, when you're asleep, you're more vulnerable when you're asleep than you are any other time in life. So he keeps back his soul from the pit, that is death, and his life from perishing by the sword. He is chastened also with pain. Oh. So not only does the Lord speak very vociferously while we're asleep and while we're dreaming, and he speaks to the conscious, and he issues your instructions and your orders, but according to verse number 19, he also speaks through pain. He is chastened also with pain upon his bed, and the multitude of his bones with strong pain. So has God actually been silent? He hadn't been, all right? So, one of the things, nobody likes pain. Nobody, we buy pain pills, and, we just don't want to deal with pain. And you think it's possible that God ever uses the platform of pain to try to seal our orders, or to persuade, exactly. He still does, yeah. And it seems like the older you get, the louder he talks in that area, you know what I'm saying? so that his life abhorreth bread and his soul dainty meat. So he's so sick. Have you ever been so sick you didn't want anything to eat? Man, I got some roast beef out here. Oh, don't even. And you could smell food and get sick at your stomach, you know. All right. So he's lost his appetite. So God speaks when you're sick. His flesh is consumed a way that it cannot be seen. You lose weight to the point where you just disappear. And his bones that were not seen stick out. So now he's got his bones pooching out all over the place. He's lost so much weight. Is that Job, by the way? Job is there. So is God speaking? According to Elihu, is God speaking to him through all of this? Yes. And so, but what is Job's? I think this is a pretty good argument, matter of fact, because none of these other guys have even thought of this. Oh, you're a sinner. That's why it's just And Elihu comes through the back door and says, no, let me mention this to you. And he's real proud of this argument, as you can tell, you know. It's kind of like, you must think I'm wonderful, kind of a thing. Yea, his soul draweth near unto the grave, and his life to the destroyers. If there be a messenger with him, an interpreter, one perhaps like me, one among 1,000. And we even had mood music right there. I like that. That's all right. If there is a messenger with him, an interpreter, one among 1,000 to show unto man his uprightness, then he is gracious unto him, and saith, deliver him from going down to the pit. I have found a ransom. If somebody, just somebody, Job, could come in and give you the right information and be a blessing to you and just be what you've wished, you know, it's me. He's gracious. His flesh shall be fresher than a child's. He shall return to the days of his youth. So, I'm here. Your wish is here. It's like a guy that said, all right, I'm here. What's your second wish? This is kind of this kid's attitude here. His flesh be fresher than a child's. He returned to the days of his youth. He shall pray unto God, and he will be favorable unto him. So if you will listen to me, listen to everything I tell you, then when you pray, God will hear your prayer, and he's going to return you to where you used to be. For he will render unto man his righteousness. He looketh upon men, and if any say, I have sinned and perverted that which was right, and it profiteth me not, now he is kind of repeating a little bit of what the buddies have said earlier. If somebody finally comes to the place in their lives where they say, okay, I confess, I did it. Well, he will deliver his soul from going into the pit, and his life shall see the light. Lo, all these things worketh God oftentimes with man. And apparently, this is one of those times, Job, that if you will just simply, and so he kind of returns to this old 27 chapter charge against Job. You know, you've got this stuff going on, just get it right and you'll be right. To bring back his soul from the pit, to be enlightened with the light of the living. Mark well, O Job, hearken unto me, hold thy peace, and I will speak. Well, what you been doing, man? He's been talking to him now for 2 chapters. Now, what do you think about what he said so far? Make sense? Think it's wrong? You think it's some make sense? Some what do you think? Y'all are wise. Okay. You think he's closer to the truth than these 3 buddies? I think so. His 3 buddies were just wrong, just period, because they didn't even claim to be filled with the Spirit, and they didn't even claim that. Their claim to their information was tradition. This is the way civilization has always looked at this issue. And there's this issue of we live in a moral universe. And if you're good, you get blessed. If you're bad, you get kicked in the teeth. That's just the way we've always believed it. And they never got off of that. That was the same tune, same song. And now this young man comes along, and it's pretty refreshing, really, to hear, well, Job, actually, God has spoken, and he has spoken through. And the reason that you're suffering is to prevent you from doing something really bad. And so far, nobody has brought that to the table. This is kind of a new argument. So mark well, O Job, hearken unto me, hold thy peace, and I will speak. If thou hast anything to answer or to say, answer me. Speak, for I desire to justify thee. If not, hearken unto me, hold thy peace, and I'll teach you wisdom. And again, I smell a little, all you got to do is listen to me, buddy, and everything will be all right. But, you know, one thing that I do appreciate about Elihu is I really, really think he wanted to help Job. I do what? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think his heart was, Job, I want to help you. But he just didn't, he was young, and he didn't have the experience on how to deal with people real well. So his people skills were a little rough, I'll admit that. Now, the other guys, oh, my word, they had no people skills at all, and they had wrong information. So, but now here's kind of the odd thing about it. I think so far this kid and he was probably in his early 20s, all right? He has given the best counsel. He's impressed with himself. He has thrown this stuff out, and now it's kind of like, how about that? What do you think of that? And when the Lord does finally open his mouth and start talking, of the four comforters, guess who he completely ignores? Elihu. He doesn't even acknowledge that Elihu has said anything. And
the impression that he almost feels like he's equal with God. He knows as much as God knows.
Exactly. I'm the mediator. I'm the one you've been. I'm the.
Even in the verse back in chapter 32, where he said, "I was made from the clay," it's like he placed himself as important as Adam, the first man that was created.
You better be glad I'm here. That is kind of the bottom line of what he's saying. Aren't we all glad I'm here? You know, to hear the truth about this matter. And so he's gonna keep on talking, and he's going to tell Job that listening to me is like enjoying a fine meal, a good meal. What's y'all's favorite meal? Who likes seafood? You'd just rather eat seafood or fish? Okay, got a bunch of people like seafood. How about Italian food? Who's nuts about Italian? John's hand's gonna go up. All right. So we got how about Chinese? We got some Chinese folks in here. All right, you like Chinese food? All right. Steak. Well, that didn't take long. So when you know you're going to have a meal like that, we went for an early Valentine's thing. I had to go to Manny's last night, and so we had a ribeye. And man, when I know the ribeye is coming to the table, I'm like, I get excited. Yeah, I got a ribeye coming. No, a ribeye coming. And so Elihu is going to tell him, just sit down and enjoy. Now, can I tell you that I despise that kind of attitude in anybody, but especially in a preacher? You ever heard anybody speak that just kind of came across that way? Aren't you glad I'm here? You know, you almost think I'm wonderful, and that, I'm telling you, that kind of spirit, especially from a preacher, I just want to walk out. I don't, but I want to, because none of us are at that level. Nobody is at that level. And so, anyway, next, when we get into chapter 34, he's going to kick it off like that. And so he's got the next 4 chapters where he's just going to lay this thing out and answer. He is gonna answer, solve the world's problems if we just listen to him. So, all right, we'll quit. Good to see y'all. Good to see you guys tonight. Thank you for being here. And now let's not forget our invitation from Caitlin to go see her show, Blue Cosmo. And might even want to bid on him. How big is he, by the way? Dave, you know how much does he weigh? Saturday morning? This Saturday morning? Okay. Are they doubling up? Oh. Wow. Now, can they do, I remember when we were in Kissimmee, if a steer was underweight,